no money, that's an asshole. It wasn't a phase.
Hello everybody, welcome back to the Senior Citizen Podcast, and this week we have a super exciting episode with a Latin Grammy nominee, multi-instrumentalist, and basically a one-woman show, Ali Stone.
Thank you, Vicky, for the introduction, and I'm super happy to be here with you.
No, the introduction could go on and on and on. Like, I read your profile, I was super excited, and then when I heard this album that we will get to soon, I fell in love with your music, honestly.
Thank you very much.
I want to hear a little bit about how your career got started, and how did we get to playing all the instruments under the sun?
Yeah, so, starting with like the instruments, I started to learn piano when I was very little. When I was 4, I started to study classical piano with a Russian pianist back in Colombia, in Bogota. And then from there, I went on to learn the flute, then the guitar. And with the guitar, I went very hard into like rock, metal, blues, all the pentatonics. My teachers were Juanes guitarists. So
wow.
That was like a big thing for me, because even like in that moment, I feel like I really went into like that very hard rock movement, even learning like all of Juanes, the guitar solos and all of that. And from there, I actually started playing guitar for other artists, recording guitars. I was like 12, 13 when I started doing this. And I started to love rock music a lot. So I learned how to play bass and drums. And then from there, that's when I discovered production as a thing. I also had this Pro Tools, this Mbox that I started using like just for fun to kind of like remix songs. And that kind of like ignited in me like this thing of like, okay, I want to learn how to produce, how to mix, how to master, like how to really accomplish like each step behind the process of making a song. And then 11 years ago, while I was still doing this hobby as I started business in university, that's when I won this competition to make a remix for Monsters University for the movie by Disney. And that was like a big door for me, because that kind of like opened so many opportunities for me to not only create music for other people too, a remix, but also become an artist, start to play shows, to become a DJ. So it was like the moment that really gave a twist to this hobby that I still feel is like my hobby because I enjoy it so much. But now it's like my day-to-day job, basically.
The definition of if you do what you love, you don't work in your life, right?
Literally.
No, I love it. And the fact that, so it's funny because every time I mention Latin rock here, I'm very like hyper focused on like Maná. And I totally forgot that Juanes is rock.
Mega rock. And even like Shakira.
Shakira, her rocker, those are my favorite albums.
Exactly. Yeah. Like Donde Están los Ladrones, like I consider it like super rock. And I feel like so happy like to be bringing like this rock side of me, because even like I feel like globally like there's kind of like a moment where rock is like coming back again into like the mainstream scene. And even like Blink-182 is touring again, and Avril Lavigne and all of this, that it's like, oh my god, I love this. But also like, for example, with my album, I was like, I want to do it like my way, and even like in a very aggressive way, even if it doesn't sound as like what people are used to be hearing of like Latin rock, because I say like this is even like Latin rock, like even Camaleónica, that has like this metal tones that people told me like, oh, it feels like Metallica, but it's like, it's like I'm a Latin woman making this, and it's also like a representation of us women in rock and us Latin people in rock. So this is like 100% like Latin rock music.
No, it's super empowering to see a woman doing this as a girl, because sometimes you have female fronted bands and they hate the term female fronted, but I say it like I'm just so proud to see another girl up there killing it,
exactly,
and not being afraid. And it's a male dominated field. Even podcasting wise, people are always, it's usually a guy interviewing when it comes to alt rock. So I love what you're doing.
Exactly. Thank you.
You learned how to do every step of this process, which no shame to everybody else, because those things are expensive. Like when you need to get them done, it's expensive. And you hear a lot of people saying, oh, I did it because I couldn't afford to get somebody else to do it. Was that your main motivation?
Yeah.
Or was it just curiosity?
I think it was like a combination of both. But definitely, because it was like my hobby when I started doing it. And it was like, like I don't have the money to pay for this. I actually, when I was like developing this hobby and like learning to produce, I started giving classes of calculus and physics and chemistry to kind of like save a little bit to like be able to buy my first monitors, my audio interface, my first microphone. But even beyond that, it was like, even with the classes, I can't afford hiring like a mixing engineer, a mastering engineer, I can't have somebody sing my songs because like nobody's gonna do it for free for me. So that was kind of like out of necessity of me being like, okay, like I'm just gonna learn it and like do it really well because I'll be able to do it for free for myself. So it was like, okay, like that investment of like the time to learn, to invest even in plugins, for example, and knowing like, okay, like I can acquire like these tools that will help me like develop like these skills. But I feel like it was also like that curiosity of like learning like, okay, like why are people like, what happens when like a song gets mixed, like what happens when a song gets mastered, how is like the engineering like affecting like the way a song sounds. So I feel like having like that combined with like that hunger of like being like I need to do this because it's the only way that I can make it through was like the perfect match, because it made me like develop like these skills like out of myself and basically like these superpowers out of myself.
So that's awesome. And I mean, our show caters a lot to the alternative local scene where sometimes they find themselves in the same predicament, like, oh my God, I have these great ideas, but I can't afford to get everything mixed and mastered. What's the biggest tip you could give to somebody who's trying to learn?
I'd say discipline. Discipline is like your best friend for this, and commitment, because it's like if you combine those two, it's like you really will find like the moment to like break through, and it takes time to also, it's like patience, discipline, and commitment, because it's like you really need that. Even I compare it to like going to the gym and exercising, because sometimes it's like, yeah, you don't really want to go to the gym every day, but it's like you gotta do it if you are committing to like improving in something specifically. And it's the same way with like learning how to produce, to engineer, like these things. It's like you gotta commit and you gotta do it like daily and practice. And there's this saying that I love, it's not practice makes perfect, but practice makes permanent. And I think like that's much better, because it's like in the end, like you don't want to be like the perfect, because there's like, who says what's the definition of perfect, but like permanent is like you want to have those skills like ingrained in your skin basically. So this is like the best way to do it basically.
It's like muscle memory at this point.
Exactly. Exactly.
So you won this competition about 11 years ago, the Monster University soundtrack remix. 6 years ago, you decided to make this move out to LA. How has that affected your career? How has LA been to you?
It has been like the best thing I've done in my career, honestly. And I think it also was like a great way for me to grow personally, even like to even explore sounds that I wasn't making like even before. Because when I moved to LA, I actually moved thinking more of my artist career. And even like when I was there in LA completely alone, because I didn't have family, I knew like very few people in LA. And it was like a moment of like saying like, okay, like maybe with the shows and everything, like things are taking a little bit longer. I need to do something to like literally survive and like pay the bills and like pay rent and everything. And it was literally out of that necessity and like hunger that I was like, okay, I'm just gonna produce anything, like whatever people throw at me, I'll do it. And I started doing like literally from country, R&B, hip hop, like everything. And I would come super prepared, like with ideas, writing lyrics, producing, mixing, mastering demos, even like delivering them, like sounding really well, because it was like, yeah, I need to get hired. I need to like put this challenge for myself, because I left my whole life in Colombia. I gotta make it here. And I think like that was like a great way for me like to push myself and even like push the envelope into like producing like genres that I had never produced before, and being able like to work with like all sorts of artists, from like Mary J. Blige to like Nati Natasha, and then even like to Diplo, Dana Paola, like so many things. And it's been like such a blessing that I feel like LA has opened like these doors, like even inside of me that I didn't knew that I had before, and showing me like so many sounds, and even like learning new instruments now that I'm in LA. That is like, okay, I kind of like even like surprise myself like every day, like being there. So I feel like it has been like the best decision, like moving there.
I want to congratulate you, because LA is hard.
It's hard.
And as a daughter of immigrants, I know how hard it is seeing someone leaving their life behind, as for better opportunities. In my case, it was for me. I'm very blessed for that. So congratulations. I know you say that open doors even inside you. Like I think that's what being in different places will do to a person. But no, super cool.
Thank you.
I want to move on to the album, Pandora. That when I first started listening to the intro track, Lumina, I was like, oh my God, it's like the Marias. I've been on a Marias thing. No, yeah, and I'm going to see them at the end of the month. So I'm like even more like hyper-focused on it. So it's like, okay, Lumina's giving Maria's and that, and then we jump into Serena, and I start hearing this electro mixed with rock that it's what's popular right now. It's what we've seen Bring Me the Horizon doing. It's what we've seen that Omens doing, and it's what's taking the scene by storm, basically. So tell me a little bit about your inspiration for those sounds, how you got them together.
Yeah, well, I feel like all of the sounds kind of like were like kind of like a thesis of me, like going back to the origin of who I am, and even like using like the guitar as like the main instrument, like the kind of like the main conductor of like the whole album. Because yeah, like I feel when I was very little that I went hard into like the guitar, like in all of its expressions. It was like I feel like guitar became like my second voice, like it kind of like became like an extension of myself. So with this album I was like, okay, I want to like use that and kind of like unchain the guitar into like everything that it can become, and kind of like use it from something like so subtle as like in Lumina and like all of this to like something like a monster in like Camaleónica, and all from the power of the guitar. So like for me it was like a moment of like going back into myself, like uncovering even like the music that I listened to when I was little, the things that I liked, like even like those like hard rock movements that I really loved, and kind of like bringing them back to life. And everything like keeping it there, kind of like describing who I am, because in the end like each track of Pandora describes a trait of like my personality and like of who I am. So I feel like in that way I was kind of like having that in mind of like, okay, like opening Pandora's box, like this has to convey a message of like who I am, and through the guitar basically.
You mentioned that all these things that made the album are parts of your childhood, so it has that nostalgia factor. I saw a big nod when I said Bring Me the Horizon.
Yeah.
So did you ever have like an emo or scene phase growing up?
Super emo. Like when I was like 13, I was very much, like into rock music. I loved Green Day, Good Charlotte, Avril Lavigne, like all of this. And I, even like in that moment that I was a guitarist myself, I would wear like this mesh like gloves and like the spikes that I still wear now, with like my black liner and like my hair like falling like down like this. And I feel like even like that emo vibe, like I still keep it like even like in my jewelry, because it's like it really defined like a part of me. So I have it like gladly. Now it's like evolved a little bit more, but I love seeing like pictures of me also, because in that moment I was like very little. I had braces, so it's like like I was like this tiny girl but like playing guitar, and it was like the guitar and me. And I was like full of spikes and everything, like still feeling like very powerful. So I feel like that really defines who I am now.
I love that anybody else, because it just happened to me. I found all my Facebook pictures.
Like
with the hair down
like
here,
exactly,
the gloves, all like all the same stuff. I don't think my mom let me wear spikes for some reason, or she was like really against them. But I saw it and I was like traumatized. I was like, oh my god, why did I do this? Like you're remembering it with such a fondness. That's like, okay, maybe I need to be a little kinder.
Like appreciate it. And I feel like even because it happens to me too when I see like those pictures, like the throwback, like the memories from Facebook, that it's like, oh my god, like why was I wearing like those sunglasses or like whatever. But it's also like in a nice way, and it's also like nice to see like kind of like, oh, like this is who I've been like all of my life. Like even like my love for like certain things, like visually and like musically, like it's who I've been there. And I even like mentioned that in one of my songs. It's like that's who I've always been, and it's like I'm just like taking like that child back again like into life, and just bringing her like now to be like part of like who I am, like the woman that I am now.
We're refined emo now.
Exactly.
No, that's I mean, it's interesting to see somebody who grew up internationally and they still identify with those same bands, and I think it shows what kind of impact this culture has had around the world, not just in the US. Do you ever see yourself doing like a pop punky album like Green Day, or something a little more new metal like Linkin Park?
It's super, yes. I feel like I'd love like to have like kind of like something that is like more into like that punk and even like new metal kind of like thing. Like even like Green Day, like Blink-182 vibes. Avril Lavigne, I feel like Avril is like a big part there. Also like mixing like with that part of like Nine Inch Nails and Muse, because I feel like they were also like in that era of like that emo part, and with movies like Twilight and like all of this, that it was like even the soundtrack was like that. So even like Paramore, for example, like kind of like bringing those elements and exploring them much more, which I feel like it would be like exploring the branches of Pandora, because even like that could be kind of like an exploration of Serena, maybe like the last part of Serena, even from like Afila from Camaleónica, that they can transform into like this more punkish thing.
The chokehold
Exactly.
that Twilight soundtrack had on all of us is insane. I love how this album's done, but you're still thinking of ways to expand and grow on it. What can we expect from a live show from you? Since I heard earlier you were saying La Niña Orquesta.
Exactly.
The girl orchestra, she does everything on her own, guys.
Exactly, yeah. But even like in this way, like I'm super excited about like the live show of Pandora, because before I've done this of like playing like drums and guitar and everything. But even with Pandora, like I'm thinking of like going a little bit beyond, even like in the visual aspect of like even bringing visuals of me already playing like the instruments that are like part of the show, but that it's kind of like in a very like immersive way, kind of like even like 3D a little bit. And also I'm thinking of like doing like the show in a non-linear way, because I know that I've mentioned like the album has to be listened like from the beginning to the end. But I'm actually thinking it's also like a cycle, like you could listen to it like in kind of like loop, because it makes sense in that way. So like even beginning the show with the opening of the box with Alerta, and then starting with like the metal, like kind of like the hardcore part, and then like ending with the light, ending with like Lumina, Serena, Perpetua, because it's like in the end, if you listen in that order, it still makes sense. Like as long as you keep it like kind of like on a loop, it always makes sense. So I'm thinking like, okay, like it's gonna be like a fun thing to push the boundary there in the live show, and also like bring like the unexpected part, like the unexpected factor of like each show starting with a different instrument, because it's like in the end I'm playing all the instruments. So like maybe one show I'm starting with the guitar, but maybe in the other one I'm starting with the drums, and maybe in the other one I'm playing like the piano or like the synth. So it's like in the end, like you'll never know like what you're gonna get in each show basically.
It'll be like, funny enough, the Blink-182 concert. I forgot which song it is, but at some point they'll cover like another song.
Exactly.
I don't remember which one I got, but somebody else got like Taylor Swift in like the previous concert.
Exactly.
That show was insane, by the way.
Yeah, because it gives you like that factor of like you're in the end getting like Pandora's box in the concert, because it's like you have no idea what you're gonna get out of that, like what experience, like what instrument, like what even like crazy outfit. Even like, for example, I have different guitars that have like different colors with LED lights, with like I have a guitar that changes the skin and like the colors. So it's like you don't know what's gonna happen with me, even like I'm just gonna transform like with each show basically.
That's super exciting. I can't imagine. I think you have a lot of pedals for your guitar. Yeah,
a lot. And like settings and sounds, and even not only for like the guitar but for my voice and everything, because there's so many like transformation aspects. Like even for example in all of the songs that I have like a bunch of vocals that I've turned like even like 2 octave downs or like up. And it's like I want that to be like super present in the show, because it also kind of like represents that chameleon-like aspect of who I am. That is like, even if it's my single voice, like I'm transforming it in a way that it doesn't sound like me anymore. But it's like I want people to see that live, because it's like that's the magic of like engineering and production and like all of these things that I do like behind the scenes. So I'm super excited like to put that there, because I feel like in the end it's kind of like going like on a ride, like on a roller coaster when you're like in Disney and you go there and it's like you're getting fed with all of this sound design and like experiences. I want my shows to be like that.
I think that comes from your love of video games too. We were talking about earlier that it sets you on an adventure, and right now it's just even going back to my first time playing Kingdom Hearts and listening to Simple and Clean and that experience of like all the graphics in the game.
Exactly.
And your music transmits that same feeling to some extent. So I'd be super excited to see you at a concert. I hope you could play one in South Florida eventually. Because the production it's gonna be a whole production.
Exactly. Yeah, it's gonna be like a whole ride, and yeah, like I feel like it has to be like very theatrical in that way too. Like I feel kind of like very much inspired by like Lady Gaga. She does that a lot, because it's like you feel like you're really going into like, I don't know, like a movie, kind of like experiencing everything. And I'd love even like to bring like a factor of like, I don't know, like feeling even like sensory of like either if it's like rain or like cloudy stuff, even with like the visuals, kind of like making them live, like just like as it happens like in like theme parks that is like if you go on a ride and it's like you can smell something, you can feel something. So I'd love to do that. Like I know like it would cost a lot of money, so it's like okay, I need to just like plan the whole production just to make it happen and make it amazing.
Yeah, your show's just gonna be a 4D ride.
Exactly.
Yeah, I know. Well, so this album, I mean, when people make songs and albums, each song is like a child. So we're not, I'm gonna make you pick between them. But what would be your top 3 to recommend for people to dive in when they start listening to Pandora?
I'd say Perpetua would be one, Camaleónica. And for the third one, it's like, I feel like it's like a tie between like Afila and Serena. I feel like they can do Perpetua, Camaleónica, and then from there, if they want something aggressive, go with Afila. If you want something more like in Serenity, go with Serena.
Sounds good. So well, I couldn't even narrow it down to 3 because for me, like Lumina and Serena just go together.
They go together.
Yeah,
exactly.
like you have to listen to them together.
Like so if you can put them together, then that's one.
Exactly. Yeah. And then Camaleónica, I absolutely love. It's one of my top 3.
Thank you.
And the last one would be Afila for sure. Because it like, and I mean the visualizers too. Both they add so much to the music. So
I'd say that exactly. Like to listen to them like with the visuals because it's like. It really transports you like to somewhere that you need to be like there, kind of like to fully appreciate like the whole thing.
For sure. We've talked a lot today about intentional art too, which I know it's your goal that you would love to be this intentional artist and putting yourself out there in the world. What's that ultimate tangible goal for you? I mean, you've been recognized by several music publications, Latin Grammys, et cetera, et cetera. What's that ultimate goal for you in that scenario?
I mean, like the ultimate goal, like I'd love like to keep like the nominations and recognitions coming and everything, but I feel like the real ultimate goal would be like just to kind of like keep living from this because it's like my real love, like my kind of like unconditional love, music. And I feel like in that way, like I would love like to just keep it that way of like doing it for the sake of art, for the love of art, and to also like be able to like use art to like see my family more often. I feel like even my family is like my priority. So like I always say like I just work to like be able to go like have longer vacations, be more with my family, with my grandma, with my parents, my sisters, just kind of like focus into that. So I feel like that would be my ultimate goal, like to be able like to capitalize on this in a way that is like I can allow to have like that time to spend it with like the people that I adore, and to also like keep, of course, like opening like more space for like people to come into this, more women to come into this, to produce, to songwrite, to engineer, to do this in a way that allows them like that freedom, like that financial freedom also, to like be able to have that vacation moment that I'm talking about, and to kind of like keep their priorities there and not have to move their priorities beneath just because of inequalities and such.
I really hope your dreams come true.
Thank you.
You are opening a space for women in this field, in this area. Even in English, we see that it's mostly men doing this electro-heavy kind of deal, and it's very exciting to see a woman doing it.
Thank you.
Especially a Colombiana.
Thanks.
So thank you for representing such a way. We close out each episode with a game. So it's super quick. I have a list of icks that somebody has posted on the internet.
Okay.
And you need to tell me if you think it is a green flag, a red flag, or a beige flag.
Okay.
Listens to MGK, Kid Laroi, or anything like that.
I think that could be like a green flag.
Okay, good music. Bad at video games.
Red flag.
Not even beige.
Yeah, no.
Hawaiian shirts.
Beige flag, yeah.
I used to wear them. Like I had Hawaiian pants too. Oh my. Wears flip-flops.
Beige flag too. Like, yeah, I feel like now I hated flip-flops and now I've started to wear them. So it's like, okay, I think it's something generational.
It's from our culture. That we don't wear
Exactly, yeah, like
flip-flops.
the chancla, yeah, like I don't mind it.
Lame tattoos and really big ones.
Yeah, I have to say red flag.
Red flag.
Yeah.
And the last one is rude to waiters.
Super red flag. Yeah.
They might as well just like,
multiple
carry
red
on.
flags. Yeah.
That's the biggest one.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen the TikTok of the guy with the huge red flag.
I haven't seen it yet.
It's really funny.
But
He'll like review videos and just runs around with like a big red flag.
I have to watch that now. Yeah. I gotta see.
Thank you for your time, Ali. This is your shameless plug moment. Let that camera know anything they need to know about you.
Well, for whoever is listening to me here, yeah, I'm Ali Stone. Go follow me on all my socials at It's Ali Stone. Ali like Alicia and Stone as it is spelled. And there you'll find my music, the music that I've made for other people. Don't hesitate to reach out to me. Also, if you're producing, if you want to be a producer, engineer, whatever, you have any questions, always reach out to me. I'm always reading all my socials. So yeah, I'll see you there, and yeah, stay connected because I'll be posting all of my new videos, my new stuff really soon.
You guys make sure to check out Ali Stone at It's Ali Stone. Make sure to listen to Pandora from beginning to end. Don't just listen to our top threes. And for all you vinyl collectors, I suggest you get that vinyl because it is super cool. Once you see it, you will fall in love with it. And we will see each other next week on the Senior Citizen Podcast.